Hi, this is Kat with Scorpion Forge, and I believe this is number 8 part. I think we're part 8, or maybe we're part 9 by now. But this is the next step where we do the grinding of our rings. Yeah, we've formed them into rings and soldered them already, but now we have to grind them off, and then also profile the the outer bevel on them like these. So what I've got some that are brass, and I made some extra because my friend Jelly ordered some extra that were some larger ones that were copper. So the brass ones in their raw state look like that, and and that's where the solder kind of overflowed on it. And then the copper ones look about like that. I don't know if you can see in there. I'm trying to get the best thing. But the copper ones, once we've ground them, will look like that. Because we still need to do filing of the inside. Have to do that with a hand file, and then come back and sand and polish them to make them real shiny. But the difference is that I've ground in this bevel here, and then the brass one, of course, looks like that because the brass ones are smaller, a smaller size. They're the medium size. They're about a size 7. The copper ones are about a size 11. So you can see what the difference between the brass and the copper ones that have already been ground look like compared to the brass and copper that have not been ground, because it's hard to tell which one's which when they haven't been ground, except I know because of the size, because of the patina on it from the forge scale from heating it when we did the soldering in the previous step. So I'm going to set these out of the way and turn this on. I won't be able to talk. You won't be able to hear me with the grinder on because the grinder is very loud. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do the brass one first and show you the difference between the brass one and the copper one, because brass is real easy because of the hardness of the metal. It goes real smoothly. But copper, because it's so soft and starts getting kind of sticky on your on the grinder belt, it totally has a lot more friction. It heats up a lot more, so I have to quench it more often while I'm grinding on it. So I have to keep quenching it in my quench water, which is right here, to cool it off. I don't know if you can see, I have a little tub of quench water, which I keep between my soldering station and my grinding station, which are right next to each other, so I use the same quench water for both. But anyhow, I'm going to start with the brass, and somebody was messaging me. And so we start by quenching it a little bit, and then we turn this on. Now this is this grinder. It's a 4-inch grinder. I think it's a 36-inch, 4-inch by 36-inch belt. And the belt has been kind of used and broken in. I like them better a little bit broken in, because the brand new ones have too much grit and they kind of eat into stuff. But you don't want a completely worn out, like, raggedy one. This one is just right, so I like it about like that. That way it'll grind things smoothly, and it won't just eat too much of your metal too quickly before you can know what's going on. So I'm going to turn the grinder on. You won't be able to hear me for a second, but you can see what I'm doing. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is grind down the little blob of solder on the seam so that it's not like super duper obvious. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate it around my finger kind of in the direction that the belt's moving, so that I get a smooth grind around the outside of it. And then after that, I'm going to get the square off the outer edges, and then come back and grind it some more. And then after that, I'm going to do at a 45-degree angle and go around and around until it creates a nice bevel. I'll show you in a second. And then I flip this around and then do the same thing on the other side. So, and then I just kind of play with it a little bit until I get it smoothed out, so it's like those over there. and then we move on to the next step after that. But I've got, let me see, 22 of these to do. So I'm only going to do one brass, one copper for you on the video, and then I have to get the rest of them done because I have to get my order out. Okay? Okay, so I ground around there, and now it's looking smooth there. I'm going to square off the edges here in a second, but it's always important to quench. Quenching is important because the metal gets hot from the friction, and it will burn your fingers. Also, it will, the hotter the metal gets, especially with the copper, if that gets real hot, then it will behave badly and be more sticky and cause more friction because it's closer to its melting point, because copper has a lower melting point than brass does. So just I mean, it's not going to melt as easily as like silver or lead would, but it still gets soft because it's such a soft metal. It gets softer as it gets hot. So just something to consider is every time you have a chance, when the metal starts getting warm, is to dunk it in your. Another quench is because when the metal gets hot, it could potentially melt your soldered joint because it has a melting point itself does. So that's also something to consider. But now we've got it squared off like that, and I'm going to go in and add the edge bevels where we do this at an angle and go all the way around several times until it starts to bite into it and makes it curve, kind of a convex curve on the on the outer edge. Now you see what I'm doing here. See, we're getting a nice convex curve on there. I'm going to have to do it some more, and I'm going to have to do it on the other side. But you can see how it changes the profile of the ring so that it has a nice curve to it. Okay, so now I kind of grounded on both sides. I'm going to go back and do a flat go around a couple of times, but obviously the way we're doing this is I got 2 fingers in the middle of the ring, essentially holding it there, and then I'm pressing it against the belt with my thumb and spinning it so that it's spinning downward in the same direction as this, because this is going down. this direction. So we're spinning this against it, so it's getting its friction, but I'm spinning it in the direction because it would be too hard to do it in the opposite direction. But it goes with the direction of that, and that's how we do that. So I'm spinning it as I'm doing it. I didn't know if that was clearly evident. So now when we get it to this point, it's got a nice rounded bevel to it, but it's got a very, well, not exactly sharp, but it's got a pointy edge. So we don't want it to have like a knife edge on that. We want it to have like kind of a squared off edge. So I'm going to go back and do this jazz to it on both sides, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, there. Now we have a squared off edge on both sides. This still needs to be filed because I'm going to have to come in here and file the inside of this because, you know, I always file the inner part of the soldered seam, and then also kind of just creating a small like inner bevel with a hand file, and I'll show you that on the next step. But at least now it's ring shape and looks about like that. I'm not going to put it all the way over my knuckle because I don't want it to get stuck, because that's kind of a tiny one. All right, so the next one we're going to do is this copper one. So this copper one, after I do that, will come out looking like this. So you can see the difference between the not ground and the already been ground one. All right, so start by quenching. Copper, you have to hold on to it because it generates so much friction. It'll sometimes go flying off the grinder. And also it gets hot a lot quicker, so I'm going to have to quench it way more often. One advantage is this is a slightly larger ring, so it's easier to stick my fingers through it because I have my fingers wrapped in duct tape. This is what I do as a safety measure because I don't want to wear gloves because this will just chew up a good pair of leather gloves, and also I won't be able to manipulate things because they'll just chew through the gloves, and then it eats my fingernails and my knuckles and stuff anyway eventually. So the way to do it so that it's disposable, or I just add more tape if it starts grinding through there, is by putting duct tape on my fingers. This is white duct tape. Any color of duct tape will work, but I wrapped it in several layers, and so I can take it off, and then when you go to take it off, it might be a little sticky and gummy, so if you have some like that adhesive on there, WD-40 dissolves that. So you can wash your hands off, scrub your hands off with WD-40, and then just go wash with dish soap to get the WD-40 off of you. So that's just a extra thing I was going to tell you about my safety precaution. And of course, I always wear eye protection, and I'm also wearing my my glasses because I'm kind of old and farsighted, and I'm wearing ear protection because this is loud. So, got to do all the safety features. Okay, so I just ground some of the solder off the seam. I haven't done a whole round of this yet, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to go around it a couple of times, and then I'm going to get it on the side, because you see where that seam didn't line up exactly right, because the width of the metal was not exactly the same, because I hand hammered it. It was not, it's like I had a round piece of 4-gauge copper that I forged to make the ring stock with, and then I cut it into blanks, ground the ends off, and then bent it, and I was using like a piece of pipe and some sockets and various things to hammer it around, and used my vise to squeeze it together, and then I like put it in some vice grips with some solder, with some what you call flux, and soldered it, and so to get it to this point. So now what I need to do is I'm going to come around and I'm going to go around it this way some, and then I'm going to square the edges off, and I'll come back in just a second. There, but it's got right. You saw that. Yeah, the copper is so frictiony that when I have it wedged against the brace here, sometimes it'll even stop the belt because it has so much friction to it. But you can see how I've ground this off now, and so there's not as much of that forge scale showing. So there's more of the bare metal. Of course, we're going to grind it some more until that all goes away. But I had to get it squared off on both sides, and now I got to do the profiling with the bevel. Put the bevel in on both sides. So now you can see I did the bevel on one side, so I'm going to have to go back and just do it on the other. Oh, we're already at almost 20 minutes. well, you see what I'm doing, and I think I'll end the video here and go to the next section, because, yeah, I mean, unless you just really enjoy watching me grind, because that's all it is grinding, 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 grinding. And I have to do that to every single one of these rings, and I've got 22 of them. So anyhow, thanks a lot. I'm Cat with Scorpion Forge, and I will see you in the next video. And I think this is number 9. I'm not sure.